Easy people. I hope everybody's all right out there. I'm gonna do one what I call Trap R&B, which is like trap and R&B, all the Drakeish stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do, making my life easy, is I'm just going to use the search engine to get some trap stuff for my drums. Like I said, I hope everybody's all right with the COVID-19, and hopefully we'll get through this. And showing you some music may help us get through this. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to look for a kit now. I like the sound of that kit. As you know, if you've ever watched my things, it's all arbitrary because like there's great sound content in here. Number one thing I always do is I always switch knobs to screen. That means I can use the knobs to control it. Now, for anybody who's seen my drum and bass one, I'm using the opposite technique. What I'm doing, instead of doing a drum beat slow and speeding it up for drum and bass, because I'm doing trap, I'm doing it the opposite way around. I'm doing a beat fast so I can get the rhythm and then slow it down. And that way, when I've finished it, it'll be nice and sparse, but it'll be rhythmical. So that's a little trick what I've come up with. So let's see if it works. Well, it does work. I know what I'm doing. So first things first is I'm going to do a pattern together. So as you know, or you don't know, because you can't see, I always do them live. Two reasons. It gets you more rhythmical if you play your pattern instead of using the step sequencer. You should use, I believe anyway, use a step sequence to refine things, but it's better if you kind of get rhythm, because that's what music's all about. So I would always suggest try and just drum it out. That's what quantize is there for. And you get better over time. You start to understand certain patterns and you start to understand the connections. So I kind of mess up. Instead of me doing it again, going through here and I'll just fix it up. And because I'm always late on this, it always goes to bar 5 and I have to make it shorter. So another trick, I've got the arpeggiator on, and then as long as I'm in clip mode, I can use the time correction. So I'm using the time correction in real time now. So for anybody who's wondering, I think they're going to put it into arpeggiator as well, so it's just directing arpeggiator, but you can do it this way. So you just go to clip, and then you go to TC and keep TC open, and then whenever you record, whatever you're tapping will work. So what I'm doing, again, arbitrary, just to get some rhythms in. And the other thing is I put in triplets in the bits. Okay, so yeah. So again, little nuancing bits. I don't want to flood this track because I notice in a lot of modern like R&B and trap, it's not too busy. It sounds busy now because it's playing fast, but when I slow it down, you'll start to see what happens. So I'm just putting little bits in, which will come in over time, obviously slower. So yeah, so I've got that now. So I've got my pattern, and now you'll have to mind if you hear some rustling or something. It's not the wind. It's my flaky sound card. I think my FW410. What's it? M audio. I think it's on its way out. I'm gonna go and get an M2, M4. Mo2 M4. Good Lord, I'm going to learn how to speak one of these days. So anyway, as you've seen, I've halved the speed now, so it's slow. Yeah, it might need speed up, but we'll see. So to hear this in context, and let me see, there's some sounds on here somewhere. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. I want them clicks to kind of stand out. So I'm going to use the send. And I'm preset king. So I'm going to use the preset there. I used to put that to 100%, but I've realized if you leave it at the settings like 50, it seems like it's a nicer blend. I thought the way I thought that this mixer worked, I thought the send sent like a signal. I'm not even going to get into that. Basically, if you use a send, it's probably best to leave it with the settings that they've got. That's the easiest way of me explaining that. So what I'm doing on them finger snaps, I'm gonna just make them kind of spread out a bit. Yeah. So now I'm just checking what else is on this kit, and yeah, I'm gonna show you so you get a context of why I did the drums the way I did them. So I'll play that. So hopefully you can see it's got that R&B. This sample isn't so much. Yeah, baby. Or some kind of rhyme. Or something like that. So anyway, that's just give a quick gist. I'm not going to use that sample like that because we're going to do our own thing, and I'm going to show you a few techniques what I've discovered to get, one of a better way of saying it, the R&B sound. First thing I do is I always load up my key finder preset. I'm using an arbitrary again, a flat. There's no rhyme. There's no reason to it at all. The reason why a lot of times on these examples that I make it random is just to show you that you can piece something together. There's no hard and fast rules. It's not like you have to use C all the time. I'll admit, usually using a flat in soulful songs seems to work a lot. Like a lot of soul songs use like D flat or E flat, or you know what I mean, G flat, so, or maybe even A flat. So what I'm gonna do now is show you another technique. And again, arbitrary. I'm keeping the ballad, but I'm just trying to find any chords. Now this is the advantage of using the note, because it's already in the scale. It means as long as I match the scale with these chords, they're gonna all work together sooner or later. So now I've realised I've found two chords what work in ballad 1, and I found another chord that works from ballad 3, another two chords from ballad 3. So that's what I'm saying. I can go through different ballads and listen and find the chords because they're gonna always work in E flat, and it's just how melodic I want it to be. So I'm gonna add something. And as I told you before, just imagine the chords. So the space, da da. Because like I always say, you don't have to do things in one go. You build up the track. So this is me, and then da. Then I'm gonna find some chords that maybe da 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 da. So I'm just adding it in. The chords I'm not quite sure of. And again, feel free to experiment, because I'm thinking it's slow, so maybe I need more movement. So I'm like, yeah, maybe we'll try this out. So as I've previously said as well, the more chords and melodies you have, the softer a tune becomes. But because I'm wanting this to be R&B, I'm trying to flood all of this out into like a load of like quite a big chord progression. It doesn't have to be like that. I could have been minimal. I'm kind of of experimented and I've kind of got a feel of where I want this to go. But the fundamentals, right, with all music, that I believe, for all modern music, what we do, it's all about the drums. If you get the drum pattern right, everything on the top will work, because the drum pattern is really whatever that genre is. So for example, like the drum and bass, as long as I've got the drum and bass in the ballpark, everything I put on top is more like it will work. Again, like I say, cakes and icing and sprinkles. So I kind of went through that and tried a few chords. You don't want to see all of that, you'd be here all day. And now I'm going to show you this. This is a way of getting a soul chord where I found the sound, and I'm like, that's his sound. And the hype is really great. Now, a lot of people might look at this hype section and be like, well, what are all these? Now, remember, if you don't know, there's two oscillators, and on the right-hand side, underneath these two things, you've got all of these as well, right? And I want to explain a couple of things. On the right-hand side, you've got these two things. When I come back to it, wait a second, I'm just fixing the attack here. Just to get a little less of that attack on that. So you see these two things here, these are like modifiers, and each sound has different modifiers. So this one's got a vibrato modifier. So now I'm getting this detuned feel. So always check the modifiers. So I discovered this one's got a nice kind of, I don't know, Drake-ish kind of modifier thing on it. And so like now I'm thinking, yeah, it needs speeding up a bit to give it a bit more groove. Yeah, alright. The other thing as well is, on the right hand side, those dials, you've got all those dials, and I'll do that in a minute. Right, so I'm not quite sure about them drums now. They're a bit bouncy. So I think they need to be a bit more like ahead. I think initially I was thinking of, what's it? There's a Big Sean song and like the drums kind of bounce a bit, and I thought, yeah, maybe try that. But then with this rhythm, it don't vibe how I felt it would be. I think a key thing what I always believe is nothing is set in stone. So when you're making a tune, if you hear something and you're like, nah, something's not quite right, you don't have to be stuck with it. You can modify all the time. Always remember, you're always trying to improve what you do, because that's how you learn, that's how you get better tunes. So what I've done is I've copied that now, that same chord sound, and I'm trying to find another synth to go on top. So this is something I've learned, and this is how you can do, for want of a better way of describing it, soul chord. So what I want to show you there is these dials work to the things on the on the right hand side. The dials work to the reverb modulation and so on and so forth. And what I'm doing now is I'm changing the oscillator. This is a default, but as I said, each one of these sounds have modifiers, so now I'm trying to find this sound, right? I'll check if there's another sound, because what I need is a kind of blunt sound. Now this has a modifier, has a bend modifier. So what this does is it bends the note, and on the top is how much it bends by. And what I'm wanting to do is I want this to bend from an octave down to whatever it's meant to be playing, or as close to that. So that's as close as I can get it. So it's going to come from an octave down, like 12 notes down, to the note what it's meant to be. So you can see that's coming up. So the only thing about that is it needs to bend at a faster speed. So that's almost like a record's playing. But I don't want it to do that. I just want it to have that bend. So I don't know if you've ever, for any soul people from like about the 90s on, well, late 90s, might have heard that kind of sound where the chords bend. You can do it on a modulator, but as I've said before, this doesn't have that modulator bend, and you can control this more if you can do it from in there. And I've done that using the default. So I could have probably tweaked that to do that. So that's the key thing you want to look for. So you want to go through the sounds and look for something what has bend on it. So what I did is I looked through one of the sounds and found something with an oscillator what had bend on it was the poly. And I wanted to explain again, these are relative to that, because some people don't know. So these are like, that's the quick keys for all of this stuff here. So instead of having to go into it in depth, you can use them dials, and those dials will hone stuff in. And then all I've done is I've added glide to make it, for one of a better way of saying it, detune a bit more for the flavour of what I'm doing. And I've got rid of a few of the chords as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten that first chord, because these are my top chords. The first chords what I did are kind of like paddy and smooth in the background, and these are kind of dominant to come in. And all of these are just based on the chords what I had before. So they just match. So all I've done is got rid of some of the chords between. In hindsight now, I think I might have changed that and moved that an octave down or something. I don't know, probably turn it down in the mix. Sometimes the mix as a go, sometimes I just go and work it out later. Right, so again, for a lot of this, less is more. So now what we need to do is do a bass. And the more I use hype, the better I like it, the more I'm understanding how good hype is. Because initially, a lot of times I preset things and I'll tweak, but now I'm starting to understand how they all connect together. Like those, I might even do one showing about, talking about the hype. I think I might do one to show like all the things what you can use to modify your hype sound. I don't know, we'll see. Tell me, like and subscribe. Tell me, like and says, more questions you ask, if people do suggestions, I'll try and follow them. So now I was messing around with bass lines, but I was like, nah, I need to keep this rhythm pushing. So I'm trying to make it sound, give it pace, even though it's slow. So those, they're too sparsy. This second part feels like, no, that's not right. The da, yeah, da. So I think that's what I should be looking at. Da. Yeah. Like I said before, it's always about refining what you do. It's like a sculpture, do you know what I mean? As soon as somebody sculptures something, they don't just go, yeah, that's it. They keep coming back and looking at it saying, no, how can I refine this a bit more? And here's another tip I've like to use as well, is sometimes going in the clip, it gives you a better idea of where you are in your song, if you understand what I mean. Like, I'm getting a pattern visually as well as through my ears to say, right, these are the notes, and seeing the connections of the notes. And this way you can teach yourself to improve like your musical skills. So I've added these in. Yeah, I think, like I said, less more. The kick, I'm still not happy with the way that them kicks are. I think they're a bit, I don't know, they're just a bit all over the place. So selecting them and delete them all in one go. Yeah, it's something like that, something driving. But keeping it sparse, because that's one thing I've noticed about a lot of the trappy stuff, it's quite sparse. So what I've done here is I've got the step sequencer on as well when I'm recording, just in case if I see something I want to add in, I can add it in there. Yeah, I think that's That's got that vibe. Yeah. So I think one more thing. And as you know me, what do? I always like to use the whole chicken. So that's that drum kit. So I'm going to use that sound. But I'm not going to use it as one loop. I'm going to get bits of that sound. So as you've probably seen in my sample chop video, you don't have to convert something to a drum program. I'm using this in this drum program. All I do is I go to sample edit, and then I'm going to go to chop, and then I'm going to create these regions. And then all I have to do is go to, just because it's on the right-hand side, I'm going to colourify them. You know what I mean? I'm thinking too long. I should just choose a colour. Just say any colour. It doesn't really matter. So I've got one, and then I'm going to have that as a slice. So I'll go back to there. All right. And that's one slice of that thing now. And then all I have to do is copy that. So I'll just copy it. And then since I'm doing them in order, I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and blah, blah, blah. And all I need to do now for me is I'm taking out some of that bass. So I use multiple to choose it and get rid of some of the bottom end of that sound. So now I've got them in pieces and they're in the key of that thing. So that should work. So this is the song. So I played those just again arbitrary random, but so yeah. Yeah, none of the answer. The money all 50 times faster. But I'm all saying, fully off, and Jenny on the answers. Man, I'm wrong, man, the answer. Yes, man, I'm all sitting on the answer. Bitch, that reminds the man, answer. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Or some song. That's just something enough. That's a nothing to do me. I'm the eight out the you know what I mean? R&B thing. So as I say, I always apologise if I waffle through mine, but it's just the way I try to explain things as simple as I can, and hopefully you get what I'm doing when I'm speaking. Like that Trap R&B, don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.